You're welcome to the Policy Council. My name is Okweme Agbaje. In this edition, I talk to one of Nigeria's most, I think, dynamic young men. Together, we'll look at a lot of issues occupying Nigeria, the role of the youths in governance and national development, the history in terms of youth activism in Nigeria, and the journey as we move into 2015. Enjoy the program. You're welcome back. It's still the Policy Council. My guest is somewhat of an enigma. He's a young Nigerian, but he's described as a journalist. He's described as a writer. I've seen him described as a poet, as a photographer, blogger, columnist, activist. And it's only just maybe, I try to calculate from public records, 31 or 32 or thereabout. Anyway, my guest is Tolu Ogunlesi. Tolu, you're welcome to the Policy Council.
Thank you.
Okay, now you had, as I was introducing, the multiple descriptions that that are used to describe you, that you used to describe yourself as well. What exactly are you?
It's a difficult question. Sometimes I call myself a pharmacist because that's what I studied in university.
Really?
Yes. Sometimes I'll call myself a journalist. But usually it's best to avoid saying you're a journalist at the airport,
yes,
because it then leads to questions. So I find myself having to sometimes just choose between those things. But I would typically these days, say that I think what I say most often is that I'm a journalist.
Okay.
Even though I don't work full-time anymore, and I only worked full-time as a journalist for about 2 years.
That was in Next.
With Next, yes. That's the only full-time.
I tried to do my research, but nowhere did the word pharmacist come up.
Okay. It was a lot more common years ago, just when I got out of university.
Which university did you
Ibadan.
go to? Ibadan.
So I studied pharmacy in Ibadan. Finished in 2004. So those early years, if you saw any bio that came out those early years, it said pharmacist. But over time, I guess it started to...
Do you remember pharmacy?
I still do. I mean, I haven't... holding a
degree. That's the only degree you have.
I have a master's in creative writing. Okay. But that's my bachelor's. Pharmacy is my bachelor's. So yeah, I still kind of consider myself a pharmacist. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. To level with you, I get that kind of accusation sometimes. So I thoroughly understand. I was reading something on your blog, I think it was, or website or something. And you had this story of Nigeria as understanding Nigeria, and you used the metaphor of cows. You have 2 cows. And I found it thoroughly interesting. Can you remember your depictions of, let me choose arbitrarily 4 states, Rivers, Oyo, Imo, Zamfara? Rivers first.
It was inspired by something, there's an attempt to explain economics using the tale of 2 cows. So a capitalist, a socialist, a communist, or sometimes you find a version of it that says 2 cows in in the UK, in Italy, using that to explain. So for me, I just thought, and this was 2010 actually, and I just thought there might be potentially a way to use that to also explain the Nigerian issue. And so the issues that I used to illustrate that article were quite specific to that time, but you'll be shocked at how they still apply even today. Relevant, so, for example, if I think of
River State,
the cows being militant, and then one of them being taught that why make milk, when there's money to be made in oil, and then the other cow was called My Cow by the president, and of course that was because at that time that was when the president called MEND my people, after the Independence Day bombings, so I just used that to
and Oyo State was
something about to do with the 2 cows. One of them is, I think, Ibadan. One of them is maybe is not Ibadan. The influence of Ibadan, a disproportionate influence that Ibadan holds over the state, over Oyo State. That was my attempt to
Imo
that.
State?
I think I said something about how the cows had turned to
kidnappers.
Yes, and that came out of one statement that the then Imo State governor, Hakim, made about how the stock market failure in Lagos had caused all the Imo State indigenes to become kidnappers. And I found it funny, and that he blamed it on the...
And he said
they put all their money in banks, and after the banks, the banks' share prices all fell, people had to, it forced young men into kidnapping. So for me, that's... and I just found that, sometimes our matters are so, out of this world that sometimes humor is the only way that you can attempt to deal with it.
Let me take a final state, Zamfara.
You have 2 cows. One of them has had a hoof amputated for stealing, and the other one, and then the other one had been caught, I think, sleeping with a calf. And of course,
that's a young cow.
A young cow, and of course that came out of the governor, who turned senator, who had...
So there were serious issues behind that.
Yes, absolutely. Each of those things was fed by something that was happening at that point in time.
Next newspapers, it was a great work of art, a great piece writing, great insight. What happened to it?
It was purely, the economics of it all. To publish a newspaper like that, especially a newspaper that defined itself as an investigative voice, the voice that would say what a lot of other papers wouldn't want to say. You need quite a lot of, beyond the boldness and confidence, you need money. Because what you are doing is you are often not on the side of advertisers and the government, who are the biggest funders, of the media. Essentially, I think an issue of a noble idea that just ran out of money. And
because of our political economy.
Because of our political economy. Of course, I must also point out that it wasn't only Next at that time. There was NN24 as well.
Yeah.
That also suffered similar issues. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a short time out. I'm with the journalist Tolu Ogunlesi on the Policy Council. We'll be right back. You're welcome back, and I'm still with Tolu. There's something I mustn't forget. 2009, and probably that's one of the things that brought you to my personal attention, was you won the CNN Multi-Choice African Journalist of the Year Awards for the Arts and Culture segment. Now, how old were you then?
27, wow. 2009. Yeah.
Okay, and tell me, what did you... I tried to find the particular piece of writing that won you that award. Can you remember what it was?
Yes, it was an essay on Mulwe paintings in Lagos. So I was commissioned by this magazine, the In-Flight magazine, actually, of the now defunct Virgin Nigerian, to do an article on Mulwe paintings in Lagos. And of course, that was also tied to the fact that the Mulwe was slowly dying out. And a photographer had gone and taken some of these amazing photos, and they wanted a text that would... And so, not knowing exactly how the whole system worked, I eventually found that, there's a guy who used to paint the paintings we see on Mulwe. We just see those paintings, all of those paintings of sometimes David versus Goliath, all of those sayings. So I found a guy on Lagos Island, who had this. I think he's no longer there. I think they've sort of, evicted him now. But he had this stretch of wall, I think somewhere in Igbosheri. And, on the length of the wall was like his studio. There in the open, so I went and I spoke with him, and I had this fascinating interview with him, and then I used that as the foundation to just tell, how, what those paintings stood for, what they symbolized in terms of our worldview, philosophical, spiritual.
No man like God.
No man like God. No condition is permanent.
No condition is permanent.
Blessed to be a blessing. Those things all, those things say something about our kind of worldview. People who never give up. So no condition is permanent. When you see a keke marwa that says no condition is permanent, you know that the owner of this keke is looking forward to the day when he's going to be using a car. You know, it doesn't matter how long it takes, you know. And then there was that fascinating one that you used to, I saw, my Toyota is fantastic, which will often be in, it often came in maybe Italian or something, you know. And you see it on anything, you see it on Danfoss and, you know, and all that. So, so that article, yeah, that was the article I did, you know. Of course, at that point, I had no idea that that article was going to win an award, and it's one of the most important things that has happened to me, because even though it's been 4 years now, and you know, I think we can conveniently forget about it, you know, because it's been a long time. You know, people just choose to not forget. And these days, I find myself often introduced as, you know, CNN African journalist, and the one who has to explain that, okay, it was for arts and culture, you know, but it was an amazing,
exciting. It was, I mean, for me,
exciting.
it was quite. And then you got involved more recently with Occupy Nigeria. What role did you play in that one? Let me know.
Well, I don't know if there was any significant, apart from making noise on Twitter.
But that was probably one of the most.
Well, it was. You know, so I found that, so now Twitter allows you to download your archives. So I did that a couple of months ago, and I found that, you know, I think I tweeted more in January 2012 than ever before or ever since then, you know, in my life. It was a lot of tweets. And, you know, looking back at those tweets, you know, the anger that I felt at that time, you know, I still kind of feel it, you know, because of the circumstances in which I thought the fuel subsidy issue was handled. But yes, you know, the part I played was, you know, playing my part, making noise on Twitter. And then I also went to Ojota. So I was there, you know, on that week, or at the height of it, you know, those 5 days, maybe I went, you know, 4 times maybe. And the first day, actually, I walked from home in Akoka to Ojota with a bunch of other people. You know, we walked all the way, and you know, I haven't missed out on June 12. I mean, this is not to compare, you know, June 12 was a lot more violent and stuff, but, you know, I haven't missed out on a lot of those things. And then following on the fact that we had seen Egypt, we had seen Tunisia, I think this just felt like our own little opportunity, you know. But of course, you know, I can't compare to speak out, to gather, and so yeah, the part I played, I think, was, you know, I showed up.
We'll continue that discussion because I don't think we can take it. Just let it go like that.
Okay.
Right after this time out.
My name is Femi Durojayi. Welcome to the New Lagos, where things are improving every day. I work on the island and live on the mainland. But that's no longer a problem. With improved roads, I get to work faster. Sometimes I even leave my car and use the BRT bus, which is comfortable, fast, efficient, and reliable. After a hard day's work, the nights and evenings are even more fun. The streets are better lit, and the city is more secure. So I can catch my phone in peace. I pay my taxes because I want to continue enjoying the good things a big modern city like our Lagos brings. So it's my taxes that makes them real. Have you paid your tax?
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back, and I'm talking to Tolu Ogunlesi. Now, Tolu, we were talking about Occupy Nigeria and the role you played. What are the lessons you took out of Occupy Nigeria? What are the lessons you think the country should take out of it?
I think the first lesson is that, I think to a large extent, you know, the governments have underestimated the potential, you know, when people come together. I think what Occupy taught us was that, look, when you touch people's pockets, and for, you know, this first subsidy thing was almost like a direct tax. Direct tax on people's pockets, you know. It made it clear, the money that government spends is not money that comes out of taxation. You know, so as long as, so it taught us about the disconnect between the people and the government is because government doesn't make the money off the people. So if we think of, if we didn't have oil and government funding came from people's pocket, taxation, you know, what we'll have will be a lot more responsible government. So I think for me, that was the biggest lesson, like, which is why I'm excited that, okay, so Lagos State makes maybe 60-something% of its earnings off tax. You know, so but that's unusual. Most other states is the other way.
Yeah.
You know, so if we get to a place where oil falls to less than a quarter of government earnings, you know, we won't
We'll
have
be a
these
better
things where,
place.
you know, we'll be a much better place. You don't need to preach to people to stand up for, you know, once they think it's their money, they will stand up and speak for that money.
Most people think Occupy Nigeria was unprecedented.
Oh, yeah.
I tend to read Nigerian history much more. And I know that in 1964 we had a similar thing led by Nigerian students in relation to the Anglo-Nigerian Defense Pact.
Yeah.
So Nigerian students said they didn't want a defense pact with Britain, and they aborted it. Just before I entered university, we had the Limos go. We had Nigerian students reject increase in education costs and campaign across the country, and people were killed in Unilag, across the country. Now, reflecting in particular on those two, I tend to worry because I've not seen a single study by any Nigerian professor or researcher on the consequences of rejection of the Anglo-Nigerian Defense Pact. Interestingly, my perspective is, I'm not supporting it, but at least you must research and ask yourself questions. And one thing I'm clear about is that if we had signed the Anglo-Nigerian Defense Pact in 1964, there would not have been a military coup in 1966. And the journey of Nigeria would have been completely different, for better or for worse. Second question, Ali must go. Is there a connection between the destruction over the next two decades of the quality of Nigerian universities? Is there a connection with the refusal to allow increased funding through fees? The substantive issue of deregulation of the oil sector. I'm not sure that Nigerians have fully analyzed that issue. Now, I put aside the issue of corruption in government, misgovernance and all the others, but that technical question, do you need to have an oil sector that is deregulated? Maybe we should discuss that question. What do you think?
I mean, in theory, you know, it's not justifiable to spend $8 billion per annum on subsidizing the importation of petrol. You know, and as economists argue, I'm not an economist, but you know, if you want to subsidize anything, subsidize production, not consumption. But you know, for me, that is paper argument. You know, when we come to the bottom line, the first question for me is, we wouldn't use so much petrol in the first place if there was power supply. And I'm willing to argue, I don't have any figures, that there are more people we use more petrol in fueling our generators than in even, you know, our cars. You know, that's just my own opinion. So for me, there's the paper argument on the one hand, which makes sense, but there's also the actual life argument, which is where history also comes in. So in 1988-89, the same arguments that the government was making, that we need to tighten our belt, was what they made then. But now, so this government tells people we need to tighten our belt, but the government itself has done nothing.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
I don't think it's a paper argument. I think it's an argument about jobs. If you have a deregulated oil sector, can it create 600,000 jobs? If, for instance, you build 25 refineries in Nigeria, I think so.
That's assuming that we won't have working refineries as long as we
have a subsidy, we will never have working refineries. That's I'm prepared to argue. So there's a technical argument that I think Nigerians will have to face beyond truly the government was totally irresponsible in the manner in which all of that, you know, and then the corruption, you lose the moral rights. I agree completely.
The main anger was, of course, because in 1 year the figure went up almost 4 times.
Okay, let's take a time out, and then I'll take Tolu's views on the role of the youths as we go into 2015. We'll be right back.
Who knows Abi better thing? Abi who no like better thing? All these fine things where they see so. Now money government they take do now. Abi, I think it's like, you know, I mean, excuse me, I dey pay my tax. I dey do a thing, I dey pay my tax. Say you don't pay your own tax. Have you pay your tax? I pay, oh.
Pay your tax. It's your civic responsibility. It's your duty. It's the law.
You're welcome back, and I'm having a fascinating discussion with a fascinating young man, Tolu Ogunlesi, journalist, columnist, blogger, activist. Art, you're involved in the arts, obviously?
Yes, I'm involved in the arts.
And I see you hang around Terra Culture. It's almost a hub for arts enthusiasts.
It is.
Interesting. So we were talking about Occupy Nigeria, and here you are, young person, part of and indeed the entire leadership of that process maybe was dominated by young
people.
What role do you see young people playing as we move towards 2015?
I think, of course, one thing that must be said is that young people have always, at one time or at all points in national life, played significant. I mean, of course, the height of it is when in the 60s, when 20-something-year-olds were plotting coups and taking over government. I think that was the height of it. But as you talked about all the...
In a way, Occupy Nigeria was your own coup.
I wish, I mean, but this is a 20-something-year-old man, I mean, we know how old Ojukwu and Gowon were when they were...
Determining our destiny.
Determining our destiny. So, but then you've also talked about the students, university students, Ali Must Go, the SAP riots,
of my own time.
And then June 12.
Yes, June 12.
And so what is happening now is that I think that the focus of that power has just simply shifted from maybe universities, because the Students' Union, as you pointed out, has been subverted, and that the new power base is now social media. And so that I can tell you that I mean, most of the people that I know now, and I consider people that, look, I would discuss, the future of Nigeria with, are people I met on social media in the last 1 or 2 years. So that power base has shifted, and, but the thing is that, there can be a lot of excitement and all that, but that's not what counts. Young people must still find a way to actually be influential. Social media seems to be that way. I think that, the older generation is paying some attention. They are seeing, they don't understand to a large extent how it is, how it works, but they are seeing that, these people, seem to have a certain kind of influence. And so it's going to be exciting to see.
But let me tell you what they will try to do.
Yeah.
Because we
co-opt,
they're going to try and capture
and
subvert indirectly. Subvert not by fighting, but subvert by buying off, by co-opting, by destroying the one who refuses. But so are we fully in short, like somebody was advocating, the youths, if they want to have an enduring impact, like Ojukwu and Gowon, have to become principals. Not agents.
Not agents, yes. We haven't yet solved that issue. I think that's what we're all waiting to 2015 to see exactly how that will play out. But to be honest, we haven't quite dealt with that issue of influence. How are young people? So I've been involved in a lot of discussions. There's been talk of a youth party. But for me, a youth party, for me, my personal opinion is that it's just going to be a ghetto. If you want, and then again, we all won't be young people forever. Precisely. As much as, I mean, I'm 31 now, but even now, I'm no longer quite comfortable with being called a youth. So if you're not going to be a young person forever, that shouldn't be the basis of your
I personally think it should be on value.
It should be on value.
What do we believe? And there are good 80-year-olds who believe in the right values.
Absolutely.
And there are 27-year-olds who are thoroughly corrupt.
Absolutely. So for me, youth is not by itself a basis to determine or to seek engagement. So a youth party, for me, it's much better to even attempt to exert influence through the youth wing of an existing party, in the hope that you can somehow,
just like the ANC youth wing led by Nelson Mandela and Walter Sisulu, took over the African National Congress.
So we haven't quite worked out. So it's all a sort of, we're just feeling our way forward now. Social media seems to be the platform, but for now, nobody knows how it will play out. We're all looking forward to 2015. To see how if this so-called influence that we have is real or is real. Exciting.
Tolu, thank you very much for
My
coming
pleasure.
to the Policy
Thank you.
Council.
My pleasure.
I'll be right back. It's been an exciting program. It's been an exciting discussion. Tolu Ogunlesi and a few other of the young men that I've met in recent times give one hope that the best days of Nigeria are yet ahead and that this country can still come to some good. Occupy Nigeria reminds us that, as he pointed out, that a citizen-led democracy can emerge through the power of taxation, and that taxation increases the inclination of people to participate in politics and in the matters that concern them. We have to evolve the Nigerian society into one that is fed and fueled by the taxes of the people, and therefore their energies and participation, rather than oil, corruption, and big government. We must also channel those energies of our people positively, however. It must be based on sound understanding of policy. Passion without insight cannot be sufficient. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.